Welcome to Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Two gals on the prowl for enlightenment, sex, and all things holy. Holy Fuck. Each week, beauty alchemist and transformational coach and speaker, Katherine McClelland, and spiritual healer and life coach, Krista Kim, discuss navigating spiritual consciousness in a real human body. Stumbling through dating, relationships, and everyday life, all while maintaining a fucking sense of humor.
So hi and welcome. This is Katherine and
This is Krista.
We're here to entertain and inspire and enjoy your company today. We are chatting today about authenticity again. And yikes! I got scared already. And yeah, I usually get scared, but it's way more fun to be a little bit alive and being a little bit out there in the world than to be all cozy and controlled about everything we're doing. We want you to know that we have your best life in mind and in heart. And we would love to share with you just the tips and secrets that we've come across to create these beautiful lives that we now are living.
I love what you just said, that we have their best interest in our minds. I love that. I feel like, what we were talking about just a few minutes ago about our authenticity and why we've been working so hard at finding ourselves, and the amount of joy that we see comes from every time we become more authentic, our lives get better and better and more joyful, and we have more fun, and our relationships are more engaging and honest. And I think for me today, that's what I wanted to share with our audience. So when you said that, I was like, yes, that's it.
Yeah, it's like there are things about ourselves that we're going to discover every single day when you're being authentic. And it's scary to discover things in front of other people about yourself that you haven't really sorted out. One of the things that I've been discovering on last week's show, I noticed I said, now that I'm newly liberated, I wondered if anybody wondered what that meant.
I did.
Well, what I remember I meant is that I have had a story most of my life that sex goes with love, and that I can't want to be sexual with something.
Oh, wow.
What I meant to say in my authentic self was... What's so funny about this is Krista and I last night had a conversation about doing a show about, fill in the word, Krista, it went out of my head, about dildos.
Dildos, but I'm like,
And what our authentic opinion is of dildos. Because remember, we're after enlightenment, sex, and all things holy. Right. And the newly emancipated part of myself has a lot more to do with sex. So what's hard for me to be authentic about is that that's true about me. And so I have been taking things out to a different edge with myself, meaning, well, we could always go there, but what I mean is in terms of my understanding of myself, and the fact that I've always been very sexual, but I always felt like I had to make it into a relationship so I could have the right to be sexual. So that can get a little confusing, and you can be in relationship with a lot of the wrong people if you're really, really attracted to their bodies, but maybe not a lot else about them. And maybe you have fun with them. I mean, they're not like the ogre or something.
Well, sometimes.
Well, sometimes they are.
After one too many drinks.
They look a lot better sometimes. And, all sorts of craziness can happen. But the truth is, can I authentically just admit I'm a very sexual person, and I always have been? I just haven't known that. And knowing it makes it an edge for me. And I get authentic in public right now talking about this. You might think I've said this a number of times. I have never said this in public.
Wow. So what's changed? Why today? Why say it out there today?
Because I am someone who's choosing to be really present in my life. And when I stumble across something that I'm hiding, I tell it. And I don't really care too much. Well, I care. Obviously, you can tell I'm slightly embarrassed. But I care more about telling the truth about me and being me than I do about protecting myself. So you may not like me, and you may think I'm crazy, or you may think I'm some kind of crazy, oversexed 58-year-old woman. But
I think that makes me like you more, not less.
Oh, okay. So basically, the choice is between being alive and being kind of half dead and a zombie. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad you're choosing to be alive, and that means sex.
And let's be clear, it doesn't mean procreation at this point in my life.
Well, yes.
I just mean
that would be a holy miracle.
Which is actually one of the bonuses of having your sex life at this point in my life, because it's a very relaxing feeling never to worry about being pregnant. Never. It just can't happen. I mean, if I'm married, maybe, but probably not going to happen. So
and when I look back and go, how much that component of a sex life puts a damper on it. It's always in the back of my head.
Even with
which
protection.
Suppresses the feeling.
Right? Even with all different kinds of things that we say we have at our disposal to take care of this problem, to make sure it doesn't happen, people still get pregnant.
It's still there. Yep.
Yeah. And so we're always a little bit nervous.
It's like, oh, I got to do the laundry. I got to go pick up my kids. And oh shit, I might get pregnant.
Better pick up a pregnancy test on my way. Yeah. Or question, should I get a morning after pill on my way to get the diapers? Oh my gosh. So that is actually an added bonus at this point in my life, is I'm never worrying about that. And that's really cool. It's a really freeing element of sexuality. And maybe that's why I don't feel like I have to have a relationship to do that.
Something you were saying earlier, it was just reminding me of like, when I was younger, I was attaching sex with the relationship and feeling like when I had those sexual feelings that they only came through the man I was with. And so because of that, then it was like I always just instantly fell in love with that person.
Exactly what I'm saying.
And I wish I knew then what I knew now. And I guess there's always that question in my head of like, oh, how do I explain that to my daughter with like making her super uncomfortable? But I think boys are probably raised more that they can just take care of it themselves. Masturbation is just out there. They know to do it. It's accepted. But I don't think that is in the culture of girls as much. I mean, it's obviously happening, but no one's talking about it. So it's like this secret thing. And so I never even knew about it. I never even knew about it. And so my feelings about sex were that they came through the man.
Yeah, I think that's true. Krista, I think there might be some shame around this. Like, I can't own sexual feelings. Girls aren't supposed to have sexual feelings. Is that right?
They can't have them?
Boys are the ones who always want sex. Girls don't want sex, right?
Well, I did. I wanted it.
I know I did, but I always blamed it on the boy. I was always like, he wants sex.
That was pretty clear I wanted it. I'm sure I had a lot of shame around it. And I would always find myself in very long-term relationships.
Yeah.
Probably as my way of not feeling as shameful about it. Well, if I date this guy for 5 years, then it makes it okay. But then I would find myself in these relationships that would just drag on and on and on. One, because I thought that feeling came through them and I was afraid that I wouldn't have that feeling without them.
Did you ever stay in a relationship for the sex?
Maybe once.
Yes.
No, but I stayed in it from the feeling of that, that must be love, or I think I just got it confused in my head.
So I've stayed in relationships where the sex wasn't great because I had already fallen in love with them and just made whatever was happening sexually be okay with me. Like, this is fine. This is fine. It wasn't what I wanted. It was no longer, inviting me into ecstasy or anything like that. Maybe it never had, but I stayed for the relationship and I didn't realize how important the sex was to me. So the relationship was deteriorating because I was frustrated about not having the kind of sexual relationship. Now, I will tell you that there are probably a couple men on this planet who will be shocked to hear this information. They're convinced I have no sex drive. But we can talk about why that happens another time.
I have the same exact story. So it was like, he was like, you never want to have sex. And it was just like this part of me that was completely shut down.
Yeah. And it's a curious thing. Where does sex drive come from?
I don't know. I used to think it would, I thought it was because of him. And that's just not the case. It was me. My heart was shut down. My body was shut down. He was amazing. It was me. But I think when we are in relationship and we're not feeling like having sex, it's just easier to blame the other person, that it must be that, oh, we're not attracted to them anymore, or they're not bringing it out in us. And it's like, no, I'm not bringing it out in me. I'm not feeding that part of myself that is feeling dead inside. I'm not doing anything creative or fun in my life to make me feel sexy and big and fun. But I just blamed him.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's so typical in many marriages, certainly with people I know, who are lots of people around marriages, that we do this thing where we tell ourselves we're not interested in sex anymore. And we don't realize that fundamentally we are always interested in sex. So we got to go find out what's going on there. Somehow it comes down to, for me, it comes down to not taking care of myself, not doing a good enough job, expecting someone else to be taking care of me instead of me taking care of me. So I can see that I will sometimes choose to blame them for not being sexy enough or manly enough or whatever excuse I can think of, because I'm not actually owning my own sexuality. I don't know about you guys out there, but is there anybody else who feels that way, who finds themselves not feeling sexy around their partner and finds it an easier path to just blame their partner and shut it all down than to actually explore, I wonder what's going on with me. I wonder why. Which piece of this is mine? And not to say there isn't something going on with your partner, because there could be. But it's probably starting with you if it's you that's not feeling it.
Well, I mean, how often do we say, oh, my husband or my boyfriend doesn't do these nice things for me or plan dates or whatever? But are we doing those things? Are we saying the nice things? Are we reaching out and sending sweet, juicy texts? Or are we just sitting back waiting for them to court us all the time?
Yeah. And even beyond that too, sometimes we have to ask for what we want. And again, that comes back to authenticity. It's like, first of all, we have to know what we want. I don't know about you all, but I have struggled for many, many years knowing what I want. Knowing what I want. What do I want? What do I want right now? Do I want a juicy, hot sexual relationship? Or do I want something else? And if I had always been clear that that's what I wanted, I would have gone after it in a very different way and made it such a much higher priority. And
so do you think that I feel like I didn't even know what juicy sex is, right? No one is telling us when we're 16, 18, 22 what sex is all about. They're giving you the mechanics of it, and they're telling you how not to get pregnant or not get a disease, but no one's really talking about heart-centered sex. I feel like from whatever age you start having sex up through maybe late 20s, 30s, early 30s, it's literally just mechanics. Unless you're with someone who's super experienced. But in my experience, mechanical thing you do. And then going through this spiritual awakening and opening my own heart to some bigger feelings and some ways of giving and receiving love, I've noticed that the mechanical sex was no longer serving me.
right.
And then it was the search of course, when mechanical sex is no longer serving me, then I go, oh, it's your fault. You must be doing something wrong. You're not a good enough lover. And then I move on instead of going, oh, what is it? One, what am I really wanting? What am I seeking?
I know. I love that you said that, because so much of it is about our open hearts. Like, the whole thing here that we were talking about with authenticity is that it's so authentic to have to tell somebody what you want sexually, what turns you on, what actually makes you want to have sex, that stuff's hard to say. Have you?
Because you have to have a big open heart and you have to be willing for them to say, sorry, I can't give that to you. Kind of like what we were talking about on the episode 1. It was like spiritual foreplay. I didn't know back when I was in my early 20s that I needed some type of intimate connection or a certain type of dialogue. Get up on something and grind on it, right? And now as I'm having this bigger open heart, it's like, oh, I was really, the sexual experiences that I had that were probably the best were the ones that were with someone who was opening my heart, and I didn't know the term for that or know that that's what they were doing.
Right.
I just had the experience of it and then was like, oh, what was that? But not identifying it with the open-heartedness or them really tapping into a deeper side of me.
Thanks for saying all that, because I think something that just crossed my mind that I think is so interesting is it possible to love someone for the time you're together? Is it possible to be in the field of loving with someone for the time you're together? So if you're literally having sex with someone that you may never see again, or you may only have this once or twice or something like that, is it possible for us to get our hearts open even then and not have what you were referring to as mechanical sex or even drunken sex or whatever kind of sex it is? I mean, it's all got a physical attribute of being at least satisfying physically, hopefully, by the time you get to the end of the process. But what's such a challenge to me is how much can I keep my heart open? How much can I love this person for this moment? And like have it be one of those sort of course, spiritual things where you're in the infinite field, like you can feel your heart is wide open and the other person's heart gets wide open because you're in that space together. And then you have this amazing experience together. You may never have it again. Is it okay with you to share that vulnerably with someone you barely know?
I'm always kind of hearing something like there's 3 stages of it. There's 2 people who are having mechanical sex.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the one person who's decided, I'm going to participate in sex with this person. I know that they're going to be mechanical about it. I'm going to, in this moment, open my heart and just love them as much as I can. And the difference between those two, I feel like, is if both people are just having mechanical sex, if I'm the person having mechanical sex, I walk away and I probably feel cheap and maybe a little guilty or shameful. If I go into it knowing that they're having mechanical sex and I've decided I'm just going to love them as much as possible in that moment, I feel like I can walk away and feel really okay with myself and feel like, oh, I just had an experience where I shared my love with somebody. So I don't have any shame about it.
It's so true. And that's authentic for you.
That's authentic. And then if I want to really up my game and go into some spiritual territory, then I hold out and I seek another partner who is open-hearted and not just out for a quick fuck and like really wants to give us both the time and space to create some intimacy. And then that's a whole nother level.
Yeah. And there's levels all over it. Like those are the 3 outposts maybe. But also, what happens when you go into a situation and we're not going to define people's sexuality for them. So whatever way you want to express your sexuality, same sex, multi, poly, and we're both heterosexual at this point, I believe.
Yes.
So we're going to probably refer to women and men just in our experience, but please know that we're accepting and honoring and celebrating everybody's way of expressing. So I guess we should try to be a little bit aware of that when we say. So we'll often
thank
not
you for saying that. That's great.
And I think Krista didn't say what the sex of the partners are just now, but it just really brought it home to me. Like, I want to make sure we're not being exclusive there. It's important to me that everybody feel really included. So if someone comes to me with a really huge open heart and I'm sort of in a mechanical mood, they can change me.
Absolutely.
And I love changing people. God, I have some of the funniest experiences of people like being grumpy with me and distant and harsh and just working them until I see a glimmer, just some glimmer in. And now I'm not talking about having sex with someone who won't relate to me. I'm just talking about.
Let's don't get into that territory.
I'm talking about somebody in the grocery store.
Catherine made me.
I have some discernment. I just want to draw a discernment line here. But I do think it's important to know that we can change the world. I just had that Jack Johnson song go through my head with my own two hands. And it's really like, we can change the world with my own two hands, make it a better world. It's like, I am capable of changing the world. I'm capable of changing this encounter.
In this context, it sounds like a sex song. I can change the world with my two hands.
Okay. Thank you, Krista, for bringing that imagery into a very innocent little song. It will never, ever be the same to
Jack Johnson. Can change the world.
Okay.
Oh, it takes two hands? You can't just do it one-handed? Well, I'm better than you then.
One for me, one for you. Okay, get off it. I still think we're going to end up doing a dildo show someday, and I just want anybody who wants to comment on that. And what we're thinking is we're going to let some of our listeners participate so that we have a broad spectrum instead of a very small.
Just you and I. No one wants to hear about a 58-year-old and a 45-year-old and their dildos.
And we can turn dildos into loving objects also. You know, it doesn't have to be a big judgment thing.
Well, that brings it back to my story as a teenager. If I would have known about masturbation back then, maybe I wouldn't have sex so young. I was very young, and because I had those feelings, I was at a very young age, and I thought that when I had those feelings, it was attached to the boy. I didn't realize that I just had those feelings and could take care of those feelings on my own. So it was like an identification that happened at such a young age. And really, I didn't have the aha moment that wasn't the case until I was in my 30s. So it's a really long time to go, oh, that delicious feeling I get only comes from a man. And so I have to then keep a man around at all times. And that's probably one reason I went from man to man to man to man with not very many breaks in between, because they were like the cure-all for that feeling. So I don't know. Do I need to start telling my daughter about dildos now?
Yeah. Well, you know, actually it's a women's health issue too, right? There are lots of ways, and not so much for young women, but for older women, it's definitely a women's health issue that you need to keep that stuff moving. And if you don't have a partner or someone you're sleeping with regularly, it's important to keep that going because it's part of your health system. And I just think that's kind of funny that had all this taboo around all this sexuality. And really, it's one of our most important systems. And I love that. I love that the universe is designed that something that helps us first procreate and then stay alive is a system that makes us feel good. And I actually think, not to get all woo-woo on you, that that's how the whole universe works. That actually feeling good is an indication that everything is all right. And when we don't feel good, it's an indication that things are a little stuck or out of balance, or I can't think of all the words they are, but it's like there's something wrong in the system and we've got to get there and check it out. When you and I have discovered this deep life that lives within us, this source of happiness and joy and playfulness and kindness and loving, and we have this massive experience of beauty and love and joy all the time. And other people don't know what we're talking about, but our lives wouldn't necessarily be lives on the outside that have gone the way that others would want. But on the inside, the producing of joy and the producing of love and connection and kindness and compassion and peace that we have is the result that lets you know you're on the right track.
And it relates exactly back to what we're talking about. That feeling that I was trying to seek through a man, and I was talking at that time a sexual feeling, it's the same thing with the joy and the happiness and the love and the playfulness and all that stuff. That's the deeper lesson that we're coming into now at this stage of going, oh, those feelings don't come from being in partnership with somebody. Like we're seeking that. In the past, I was seeking that through a partner. And now I don't have a partner, and I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. And I'm not saying that it's because I don't have a partner. I want to have a partner and have that experience. But the difference is I don't need to be in partnership to have that feeling.
Absolutely. I love that. And that the idea that we can get beyond the need and get to the freedom of choice is, I choose. I want a partnership. And right now, what I have is partnership that has sexual opportunities and fun and playfulness. And that's what's in my world right now. That's what I have.
But you have that in your world. You're attracting that because you are that. So
yeah.
I know we talk about this a lot, the premise that when you are calling in a partner, you are receiving somebody who's your energetic match. So if you are not a very playful person and like to be inside a lot and play video games or whatever your thing is, you're probably going to attract someone who's very similar energy level. If you are like you and you're active and you're free and you're open-hearted and you're laughing and joyful, you're going to call in somebody who is meeting you there.
Yeah, it's true. And none is better than the other. It's just what you want. And I think sometimes we get stuck. So one of the distinctions that can be made sometimes is that what are we doing with our time? And is it entertainment or distraction? Or is it actually creating aliveness for us? Something that's entertainment for one person can be alivening for another. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment to a degree. But when distraction and entertainment take over your life to the point where you walk in the door and you turn on the TV so you don't feel the feelings of, I feel scared not to have everything I wanted in my life. I feel like people are judging me, which means I'm judging myself about the fact that I don't have as much money or time or this or that in my life. And or I don't have a man. Like I feel scared to be in a life without a man. It's like we have to discover how to be free and alone with ourselves, like in partnership with ourselves, before we can feel free to be in partnership with other people in a real, genuine way.
I think that, like when I was married, I think I was looking at him and saying, oh, I'm bored, I'm unfulfilled, I'm not feeling sexy, or I feel dead inside, or I feel trapped. I was saying all of these things and I was blaming him for those feelings or blaming the marriage for that. And the reality is that I was the only one trapping myself. I was the only one not doing the things I really wanted to do in life because I was scared. And it was just easier to sit back and blame him for that. And it had nothing to do with him. It was me. I was doing that. So I don't want to do that anymore. So my lesson in that is to get the fuck out there and do everything I want to do and have a blast doing it and not to be scared of anything. And then hopefully I will meet that partner who's right along with me and brings that same component to my life.
Yeah, it's super normal for us to be afraid and to hide and to worry about our needs and to step into sort of a survival mode. That's really normal. That's what human beings have done for ages. But what we're talking about is being on the edge of evolution. And if you think about it before, like the evolution edge, it was like amphibians crawling out of the water and learning to use their legs. That can't have been easy.
Oh my God, we're evolving right now. That's just what I heard in my head. It's like we're going from the mechanical sex and we're evolving into like a species that needs, like, we're aware now of like, we can have sex and have our minds blown, right? That wasn't necessarily information that was out there hundreds of years ago. I mean, maybe it was, I don't know. But the standard has now up-leveled where people are like, oh, I don't, just want mechanical. I want my mind blown. And if you can't blow my mind, then I'm not there. I don't want to do it with you.
I can't just blow other parts of me either. And the thing is I love about kind of this whole thing is that I'm responsible in so many ways for blowing my own mind. And I read things every day that blow my mind. The way people put words together, poetry and sentences in books that I read, and some of these great, amazing spiritual writers. And I get a direct transmission. I feel like divine, the spirit, the God, whatever you want to call that thing that lives deeply within us and surrounds us and loves us. When that thing is in place in us, there is an access to creativity and a power and a willingness to stand alone, stand up for ourselves and say, this is who I am. And I'm never going to know who I am unless I say it out loud, because it partly has to bounce off of someone else for me to see how it lands. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people out there, Krista, that don't love sex. It doesn't work for them. Their bodies don't feel the same way as perhaps.
And do you think that's because there's a closure in the heart?
I have no idea. I would imagine.
I know that I didn't necessarily enjoy sex for a lot of years, and I know that had nothing to do with that other person. It was because my heart was so closed, I couldn't fully open to the experience and enjoy it. I just... Maybe people are too afraid to enjoy it and their bodies respond with fear, and then it's too hard to... There's shame around it, or whatever the stories they have around it.
Right. And, there's certainly compassion here for people who've had bad experiences and who have been, in lifelong dysfunctional experiences that are still haunting them. So there's that. And they'll just sometimes, you don't have to open every can of worms in your life. Just because you can doesn't mean you have to. And just for some of us, some of these journeys have been bigger than others. And I want to just really acknowledge that for whoever you are, however you've handled this, all we're saying, I think here that we really want everyone to hear is being yourself is the most important self you can be, and taking care of yourself so you feel safe and cared for and loved, even if it's only by you today, because you're the one on your own team, is where we get started in this journey of stepping fully into who we are, and then being willing to just be from that place and allowing ourselves to attract what we attract and to be attracted to what we're attracted to. And if sex isn't our thing, we don't need to have it. And if art isn't our thing, we don't need to have it. We get to choose. That one of the most important attributes of life is that you feel free unto yourself to choose what you want and live that way.
I feel like that was my biggest journey through going through our master's in spiritual psychology. Like from day one to the very end, it was like me trying to weed through all the layers of myself that had gotten put on that was suffocating me. I could not find myself under all the layers of whether it was things that I thought about myself from childhood, or becoming a mother and becoming a wife, being a teacher, whatever it was. There was just so much on top. I just couldn't get to the core of who I was. And so going through school was like peeling off this layer, oh, is this layer me, or does it need to go away? Is this one me? Oh yeah, that one is me. Okay, I'll keep that. But this one, that side has got to fucking go because it's not serving me anymore. And in doing so, I felt like the connection point, really finding that spirit connection inside of me, that all-knowing place inside of me, that God place inside of me. That was when I finally was able to tap into that truth for myself. That was where I gave myself the permission to stop hiding. It was like that was broke through the fear. I was like, I no longer have to hide who I am, because I know that I'm being guided in this direction. And I know that when I say certain things, I feel more in my truth than when I don't say the things. Or it was a very empowering process. And so when we're talking about authenticity, I think when we connect into a higher power, that's when we really get the nuggets of who we are.
I think one of the things, Krista, I love that when we tap into the higher power, I think one of the things that happens is that people are guarded against some of what that higher power thing might might appear like, might look like, what it looked like in their childhood. And really, when we're talking about that, I mentioned I'm a minister. I'm a minister of what I call universal spirituality, which is about experiencing the divine, experiencing God, experiencing infinite intelligence. And the attributes of that are that it's a field, essentially, and it's a field of loving and kindness and creativity and passion and beauty and on and on. It's all the juice of life. And what happens is when we actually combine our energies in that field, we feel safe. And we feel safe enough to be with ourselves in the field and speak for ourselves instead of needing to hide and be scared because we think we're alone. And whenever we think we're alone, we will not be able to be authentic because it's just too scary. And, for those of you that are wondering about these connections and, do I believe in God or a higher power or any of those things, it's like, maybe it's more appropriate for you to consider that this is more like a field of consciousness. And what we're going to ask you to do is to choose between two fields of consciousness. One is dominated by fear and your limbic system. So it's dominated by that. So it's dominated by adrenaline and, this sort of impulse to run and get shit done.
And when we're in that space, we're not in our authentic selves.
No, we're in a part of our authentic self. I guess what I would say is we're in our limbic system, which means we've regressed back to animal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're the same as the creature that doesn't have anything else available to them. And we don't know who or what those creatures are, but there eventually is probably more in humans where we have conscience and access to the field and that sort of thing than in some other animals.
Right.
Horses appear to have a vast amount of spiritual connection, but other animals maybe not quite as much. But we don't know. We're really not in charge of connection that way. What the truth is when we allow ourselves to feel ourselves into a place where there is actual experience, then we're not guessing or wondering or hoping that there's something that feels good. We're actually stepping into a place where it is worth it to be who we are because we were given a gift to arrive on this planet with something. And now it's our job to give it back. And we can't give it back while we're hiding. It's just...
No, if the fear is on there and we're staying really small, then we're not allowing anybody to see us. And that which means we're not allowing them to enjoy us for who we are.
And we're not enjoying ourselves at all. That's the hardest part is you get home and you're like, yeah, I slayed the dragon and I earned more money today and I sold more stock or I did this or I did that. And you get home and your house is empty or it's full of people you don't like. That's That's happened to me.
You're like, everybody get the fuck out.
Right? I mean, I've had apartments where I literally come home from work sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, why am I living here? Who are these people? I have nothing in common with them. Luckily I was a fairly brave soul and I just kept taking off whenever that would happen and I would find another crew and I got better and better at it to some degree, although I do have 2 ex-husbands. So I didn't get that good at it.
Me too.
I was never at home with myself. And I just want to say that for sure. It's been a journey of opening that up. And I can say that if you're looking for a relationship or love or just sex, you still want to be a human. You still want to be in your humanity with someone. You want to feel your heart open. You don't want to just be banging especially against the top of the bed. I hate when that happens. Yep. But
unless that's your authentic self.
That's true. But I don't want to be just banging against another person's body. I want to also encounter their soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be most authentic for you right now in your life of where you're going?
Wow. Oh, what a great question. Well, I have to tell you that right now, the truth is that I have enough space and time in my life to notice the guidance that is coming to me on a moment-to-moment basis about what my next steps are. So I feel very alternative universe-y, like I'm paying so much attention that I see the next step coming towards me, and I have absolutely no idea where it's leading. I do know that my relationships are strong and my heart is open, and I contribute to the world. As my mentor and friend, Reverend Michael Beckwith, says, are you a beneficial presence on this planet? Of course, that I know that's true about me, except when I'm driving, which I'm really embarrassed and sorry to say.
Are you a shitty driver?
But, motherfucker comes out of my mouth more often than I would like, and what's your problem? So anyway, so I think what's true is being authentic. I hate to say that so many times. So being real, being who I am, is giving me gifts that I never would have imagined. And it's giving me to myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like you. How about me?
Yeah.
Well, like I was saying, through my journey of really becoming authentic with myself, what I realized is that I will never lie to another person ever again. And what I mean is, and I'm not even talking like big lies. I'm talking those little tiny lies that we tell that we do in order to that we think we're saving somebody's feelings. And so what I've noticed in the past is that I wouldn't really speak up for what I wanted. And in doing so, it would build these layers of resentment. And then I would find myself not being authentic, not asking for what I want, not doing the things I want, or not behaving the way I wanted to because I was so concerned with what everybody was going to think about me, or I was concerned about whether I was going to hurt their feelings. And so when I say lie, I'm not talking like big lies, but I'm talking about like in every moment, I'm trying to be authentic in who I am, which means if you ask me whether I like your shirt, I'm not going to be mean, but I'm going to be more truthful because I've just noticed that all those little tiny ways in which we withhold, those little tiny untruths that we tell, they just keep piling on and they add up and they put these layers and they make it hard for me to find myself in all of it. And so I've just really made a commitment to myself to just be honest as much as I can with everybody.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. It's so true. Those little dishonesties. Somebody drew the distinction about the difference between being kind and being nice. And I have a sign in my living room that says, "Love is patient, love is kind." What it means is I'm kind enough to tell you the truth. I'm kind enough to give you a sense of what's true about what I'm saying to you. I'm kind enough to tell you if this relationship is over. I'm kind enough to tell you if I'm heading in a different direction or I don't like something. I'm not going to lead you on and hide from you and be disingenuous and then shock you and surprise you with something that's true for me. To the best of my ability, I'm not going to do that. So I think that's a really powerful choice to make. And I love that you're making that choice. And it seems like on that note, we hope this has been fun or at least interesting or at least provoked a thought or two.
And maybe it's helping them start thinking ways in which they can be more authentic in their lives.
Just take even the idea that sex could be mind-blowing and not just physically, and add something in. Look in someone's eyes, look into their heart, or say something that you've always wanted to say.
I love that.
It's something. How about we challenge you? How about we just give you a challenge? Because this works so well for us. Just do one thing differently, one tiny little thing that you know would give you some relief, would be more real about who you are, would tell someone a little bit more of the truth of your story. Just do one tiny little thing and see what the effect of that can be. And I believe that you will be mind blown by that.
Holy fuck, make one little tiny change.
And you can change the world.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. All right, everyone. We love you. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We want to connect with all you lovers of sex, spirituality, and all things holy, but unfortunately, you've got to make the first move, baby. That means heading over to holyfuckpodcast.com to find our new episodes and all the juicy deets about Katherine and Krista. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at holyfuckpodcast to get up-to-date info on our new episodes and current happenings. And if you are seeking a more one-on-one experience, check out Krista's offerings at KristaKimCoaching.com and visit KatherineMcClellan.com to see what's shaking in Katherine's world. Your spiritual evolution will thank you.